Hey, this is Paul Payton with Focal Splash, and today I'm going to show you as quick as I can my Lightroom workflow. So first off, I'm going to put a CF card or SD card into the reader, and if you get any pop-ups from whatever operating system you have about importing the card, ignore those. Next thing you want to do is hit import and choose the SD card if it doesn't come up immediately. And there's just 4 pictures on this SD card, just to limit it for for this tutorial. You want to hit copy. Copy is DNG, takes longer, and you don't necessarily need to do that. These are JPEGs, but normally I would have raw files also. All these settings are up to you. Build previews, I use minimal. I allow it to build the preview as I click through. If you want to take more time importing, walk away for a while and then come back, you can build larger previews, or one-to-one previews even, and that will allow your workflow to be faster once you're in there. But I like to do my culling, my first sweep culling pretty quickly, and I don't need to go looking at every one-to-one size image. So make a second copy. If you like to make a backup immediately, you can choose that. Don't import suspected duplicates. That's good, not to have multiple files of the same file in your catalog. And add to a collection, you can do that. I don't do that. Naming the files, I usually just add a number to the file name, and that's so you know how cameras will recycle file names eventually. Once you get past a certain number, it goes back to the beginning. And if you have multiple cameras, then file numbers can end up being the same. So I add a sequence to the file name as I'm importing, so that it's more likely that all the files are going to have different names. Just lowercase. That's a sample. I don't add any automatic settings during import, although you could. It would make sense for me, since I almost always hit auto white balance and auto tone. I could add those right there, but I don't do that. I go ahead and do it myself manually. And then import subfolder, into subfolder. Alright, I choose to import all of my files to my faster hard drive, not my external hard drive at first, and then I'll copy them over to my external hard drive later to store them more permanently. But this hard drive is faster, and so it makes processing faster. I just put them in my pictures folder under Lightroom imports, and then by date. So you can see here it's going to put it in 2016 and then the date, and that's how I store my files. And I rename the this folder here, so I can show you that in a minute. I rename it so that I can, so everything's sorted by date. So if I go, hey, something's in 2016 in May, then I can go to Mayish or June, I can't remember which, and scroll through those, and I'll see the names of the shoots. But that's where I put them right there. So that's all you need to know about importing. Make sure you select how you want the files to be renamed, if you want them renamed at all, and where you want them in what folder. All right, and then that saves this for next time. So it's just an import. All right, and it imports them and shows you what it says, previous import right here. It shows you whatever you previously imported, which is just now. And so here they are, imported into Lightroom. Just real quick, I'll show you what else is in my catalog. I have it import to the faster hard drive in 2016, and here they are in this folder. Just a bunch of stuff that I have in another folder that I kind of cleared out. You see, I name the thing whatever it needs to be named, so that I can remember who to send it back to, that sort of thing. Here I gave it a really long name. So that's how I organize it. And then later I'll move it down into one of these folders. These are the photo shoots that my wife has done. One of the more recent photo shoots here, and there's all kinds of things that I can't take time to show you in Lightroom. But here's a photo shoot, and I have it stored, and it's stored permanently. Currently, this is a fairly recent one. I still have all the rejected files in here, the images that I've rejected that I haven't deleted yet because I get nervous about deleting files, but I don't need to see all those while I'm going through it. I can just see the files that I haven't rejected. See, we took 326 pictures and there's only 84 that are left after the culling process. And eventually I will delete those to save space on the hard drive, but I don't need to delete them yet. I could just hide them. And so that's the way I run my catalog and categorize it by year and then the date and all the different photo shoots. And let's just see, here's the church we go to, and we take lots and lots of pictures for the church. And so spelling bee, that's a school, and special speaker, and the college is there too. So all kinds of pictures we take are all categorized, and for me it's easy to find that way. You can also we do use facial recognition and saving people's pictures by their faces and that kind of thing too, keywording and things like that, but that's a little more advanced in catalog, which you can learn later. What I really wanted to show is just this. We have 4 pictures that I imported. It could be 100, it could be 1,000, 2,000, and we go through the culling process. I would just click that and move the arrow keys over, and you can also click here. This is the library view. We have grid view and loop view. You get to the loop view by either double clicking on the thing or hitting E, because loop ends with the letter E. So strangely, but that's how you do it. And so we have these pictures here, and just with the over arrow, go to the next one, go to the next one. I kept these 2 because I would like to show how to do a eyes swap. I really like the blonde-headed girl's pose right here, and the smile on the little girl, and here she's looking at the camera. So I think we're going to do an eye swap on these 2 and save this picture with her looking at the camera. All right, so what I would normally do in the culling process is just hit X on that if I wanted to reject it. I like that one, X that one, and I like that one, so I don't X it. All right, and then over here under filter, you can just click that, and it will show only the ones you haven't rejected. All right, so I mean, that's super fast and organizing, and once you get down to the pictures you think you want to keep, you can reject more later. It's all going to be up to you how you want to use Lightroom. But let's go ahead and not reject those. See, I didn't even delete them. They're still there. That's beauty. I like that. So next thing we're going to do is just process this picture a little bit, just to show you what is possible. There is some simple processing here, and I use that sometimes, but let's go to develop, and it gives you more tools. It's a white balance auto. All right, and made her a little more sunshiny, added a little warmth to it. I like it. I don't always like it. Sometimes I think it's a little yellow, or so you can go in and adjust it as you want. And then I hit auto. It's a good place to start. Way too bright for me. I think auto almost always makes things too bright for me. But instead of adjusting the brightness, let's adjust the highlights down. So it's bringing the highlights up here, and some of them on her face down. You can bring the shadows up if you think it's necessary, but I don't see any lost detail in dark areas here, so I'm going to leave that alone. Whites look fine and blacks look fine. And just scroll up here. If you wanted to add vibrance, lately I've been adding a little bit more vibrance. It's really up to you. Some people like to desaturate a picture. I've been adding a little more vibrance lately. It's all to taste. This is a favorite tool of mine that's been added to Lightroom recently. It's called dehaze, and what it does is if the picture's hazy, like a lot of cell phone pictures are hazy, or if your lens wasn't perfectly clean and there's some haze, this is great for that. It'll let's turn it way up. You can see what it does, or way down. You can add haze or remove it. So a lot of cell phone pictures end up like looking like something like that. And then you can just take this tool and add haze, or dehaze it. Yeah. So I like to use it sometimes just a little bit to add contrast and brings in more color and things like that. Vignette. Vignette is, you know, some people are like, ooh, I like a vignette like that. I like a vignette you can't see. So I start out right there someplace. I bring it in and feather it a little bit, and it's still too strong for me. So I just bring it out like until you can't really see the vignette. Right? And then you can bring this in, which brings the vignette closer to her. But so if you can't really see it, it's just it seems to add light to her and not in the background. And I like the way that's looking right now. We can do cropping in here. All the stuff that you'd pretty much want to do to a photograph other than pixel manipulation, you can do right in Lightroom. And the thing was, you're not adding gradient layers and adjustments and stuff like that. The simplicity of Lightroom is its power. The fact that it's got the tools right here that you'd need to adjust the image for a photograph. Not so much the super stylish stuff that you'd see you can do in Photoshop, but just the basic things that you would want to use on a photograph. Just for instance, let me real quick go back to basic and turn down the brightness, just like the exposure. Just like that, you have somewhat underexposed image. Maybe you're looking for a certain style. You can grab the radial gradient here and double click on effect. That zeroes everything out. And then just say you want to raise the exposure just on her face. So just choose some random exposure up here and just put it on her face just like this. This would be like you had a flash, just a snoot right on her face. And you can raise it more. You can adjust the highlights specifically on her face, adjust the shadows, bring them up. Clarity. Don't put clarity on people's faces. It's not that good unless it's a guy. But you don't want to declarity their face either. Blurring somebody's face isn't really the way to smooth skin. We got saturation, so you can adjust parts of the picture either with the radial gradient or let's just zero this back out. We're going to add a little exposure to her. I'm not sure I'm sure I wouldn't process this picture this way. I'm just showing you. We got a brush tool here with exposure. Basically the same thing. You can just brush on where you want the exposure adjustment. And there's something called auto mask, which works fairly good in conjunction with not masking. And so I want to just do this pull here. So it's not brightening this area here, just brightening where the color is, like this dark area. I don't want to brighten everything, just that dark area. And see, it just did an auto mask on that. It works fairly effectively. But again, just to show you what's going on there. Let's take that off. And you can click on this little thing and delete it. And it's gone. Go to the radial gradient. Click on this and delete it. Actually, I'm going to leave it there. Just going to leave it like that. And then I'm going to go back, turn it off like that, go back to basic, bring up the exposure all around, but keep it somewhat down so that she's brighter in her face. Something like that. All these things are possibilities for you. You want to adjust the tint, right, of a picture, the temperature, make it cooler. It's an evening shot, make it darker and cooler. Or you can choose what you want to be the white point, not the white point, the white balance. If you know something, you have a gray card or something, there's gray, you can choose the white balance on the gray card, just like that. I'm going to go back to auto. I liked the way that looked. Looks a little green to me now. So I'm going to add a little bit of magenta in the balance here. And, so there you have it. Now, another neat thing in Lightroom is just select all the images in the piece. You have this one selected and the rest of them are selected. You can click on sync, and except for the local adjustments, you could just synchronize them all. Alright, and what that'll do is give the rest of the pictures the same starting point as the one you just did. Has the same starting point with your dehaze and things like that. And for this one, let's, we just change her crop a little bit, right like that. Maybe bring this in a little bit so we can move her down. All right, like that. That's a better angle. This one, these two, I'm going to take into Photoshop and do that eye swap. But until then, let's look at this effects. See, it has a small vignette on it, but I think the vignette on this particular one would be served to be higher. This feather, he says no feather, and then almost everything's almost gone with the feather. So I like it right there sometimes. And there you have it. Processing in Lightroom. To send both of these into Photoshop, you can click on them both. If this is set to auto sync, then when you hit Control E, just Control E, it'll take them into Photoshop. And same thing as doing this. Edit in Photoshop. And you can edit with the Lightroom adjustments, or the original, or a copy. It's really up to you. I like to make copies of things over and over again. I have multiple versions of stuff. So I'm going to just hit edit with Lightroom adjustments. Alright, and in Photoshop, we'll just lasso tool these girls' eyes right here. There's lots of ways to do this. So just going to do that. Control C and Control V. And you can drag them with the V with the move tool. And that's perfect, right? Oh, Control T for transform. We'll just find the right place to put them. And I'm going to use the opacity, lower the opacity to make sure I'm putting them in the right place. Okay, they still need to be rotated slightly. And for the purposes of this tutorial, I would adjust them more, but I don't want to take your time to do that. Hit enter, just like that. And then when you close this or save it, it goes right back into Lightroom. I hope I did the right one. So, right back in Lightroom. And you can see they're both looking at the camera. And I think that looks really good. I would definitely take a little bit more time in Photoshop and do that. And then we can stylize it with any styles you want in Photoshop. We took that picture and did that with it. Alright. So, at this point, I would take this and rename it to whatever the name of the client I was working on, and when I was done with the whole thing, maybe a day or two later, drag it down into whichever category folder that I have down here for it. Alright, if you have any questions, let me know. If you think I don't know what I'm doing in Lightroom, let me know. I'd be glad to learn something from you guys. So thank you.